Hello, if you've been here before, welcome back. And if not, welcome. Now, let's begin. The thing about driving at night is that you start to notice things you normally wouldn't. The way the darkness stretches endlessly, the silence pressing in, only interrupted by the low hum of the tires on the asphalt, the occasional flickering streetlight. I was on the road for 8 hours straight, heading from Chicago to Denver, trying to outrun the life I had left behind. A dead-end job, a relationship that had crumbled beyond repair, and a sense of suffocation that had been clawing at my chest for months. I needed a fresh start, a new beginning. The highway stretched ahead, an empty, endless black ribbon under my headlights. The air smelled of rain, even though the sky was dry. I had my window cracked open, the cool wind biting at my face just enough to keep me awake. It started around 2:30 a.m. I first noticed the truck when it appeared in my rearview mirror, its headlights piercing the night, too bright, almost unnatural. I figured it was just another driver making a late-night haul across state lines. But something felt off. It was keeping pace with me. No matter how much I sped up or slowed down, it stayed the exact same distance behind me. Not too close, not too far. Just enough to let me know it was there. I turned up the radio to shake off the unease. Static. I flipped through the stations. More static. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. I glanced at my fuel gauge. Half a tank left. Enough to get me another 100 miles or so. I just needed to focus. Ignore the truck. But then, it started getting closer. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. Sleep deprivation does weird shit to the brain. But the truck was getting closer. Its headlights grew brighter, flooding the interior of my car, making my own dashboard lights flicker. My heart pounded as I kept my eyes locked on the road ahead. Then, the worst part, it accelerated. I slammed the gas pedal, heart hammering against my ribs. My car wasn't built for speed, but I pushed it as hard as I could. The truck matched me. I flicked my turn signal and veered into the next lane. So did the truck. I slowed down abruptly, hoping it would pass me. It slowed down too. "What the hell do you want?" I muttered under my breath, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. For the next 20 miles, it played this game with me. Closer, farther, side by side, behind me again. I felt like a rabbit being toyed with by a predator. Then, the horn. A deafening, thunderous blast of sound filled the highway, making me jump. It wasn't a normal truck horn. It sounded wrong, distorted, as if it were echoing from somewhere deep, somewhere unnatural. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I had to get off this road. Up ahead, a green sign flickered into view. Rest stop 1. Miley didn't think twice. I swerved into the exit ramp, tires screeching against the pavement. My heart pounded as I pulled into the empty parking lot, slamming my car into park. Silence. My breath came in ragged gasps as I looked in the rear view mirror. The truck was gone. Just gone. I exhaled, pressing my forehead against the steering wheel. Maybe I was just overtired. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. But then I noticed something else. The lights at the rest stop were off. The vending machines flickered, their neon displays dead. The gas pumps looked rusted, like they hadn't worked in years. A thick layer of dust coated the glass windows of the convenience store. And then I saw him, an old man, sitting behind the counter, staring straight at me through the cracked window. He didn't move, didn't blink, didn't acknowledge me when I stepped out of the car and approached the building. Something was wrong. I hesitated at the door before pushing it open. A small bell rang overhead, the sound unnaturally loud in the dead silence. The old man's eyes snapped to mine. His gaze was sharp, piercing, like he could see right through me. His skin was pale, almost waxy, and his clothes looked old, like they belonged to another time. "You shouldn't be here," he muttered. His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't spoken in a long time. I swallowed. They always come back," he whispered. The words sent a chill crawling down my spine. "Who?" I asked. The old man leaned forward. His breath smelled like stale tobacco and something rotten. "The truck," he said. "It always finds you." I felt my stomach drop. The truck wasn't just a vehicle. It was something more, and it wasn't done with me yet. I rushed back to my car, heart slamming against my ribs. I needed to leave. Now. I turned the key in the ignition. Click. Nothing. Click, click, click. Dead. "No, no, no," I muttered, trying again, my hands shaking. A low hum filled the air. I looked up, and there it was. Headlights, blazing bright in the distance. The truck was waiting, watching. A cold realization settled over me. I hadn't escaped at all. This was just the beginning. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My breath was coming in short, rapid bursts as I stared at the glowing headlights in the distance. It wasn't moving. Not yet, but it was waiting. The old man's words echoed in my head. "It always finds you." My fingers fumbled for my phone. No service, of course. I slammed my palm against the dashboard in frustration. I wasn't about to sit here and wait for that thing to make the next move. I had to do something. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. The night was eerily silent. No wind, no insects. Just the distant hum of the truck's engine, low and unnatural, like it was growling at me. I turned back toward the convenience store. Maybe the old man had a phone. Maybe he had answers. But the store was dark now. The lights inside had gone out. The old man was gone. The counter was empty, the stool he had been sitting on knocked over like someone had left in a hurry. A thick layer of dust covered the floor, undisturbed except for my own footprints from when I first walked in. Had he ever been there at all? A noise behind me. A faint click, click, click. I turned sharply. The truck's headlights were off now, but it was closer. I swallowed hard, my skin prickling with cold sweat. I hadn't heard it move, but it had. I ran to my car, yanking the door open, diving into the driver's seat. I twisted the key in the ignition. Click dead. My pulse pounded in my ears as I tried again. Click, click, click. Nothing. A deep rumble rolled through the air. I looked up. The truck was right behind me now. No headlights. No driver. Just a hulking metal beast looming in the darkness. Something shifted in the driver's seat. A shadow. A shape. I couldn't make it out, but I felt it staring at me. And then, the engine roared to life. The sound was deafening, filling the entire lot. I could feel it in my bones. I had seconds to react. I threw open the car door and ran. I didn't look back. I sprinted across the rest stop parking lot, my shoes slamming against the pavement, lungs burning as I pushed myself forward. I needed to get away. The truck's engine revved behind me. A split second later, tires screeched. It was coming. I veered off the pavement and into the trees behind the rest stop. Branches whipped at my face, the darkness swallowing me as I stumbled, over roots and uneven ground. My breath came in ragged gasps, every instinct screaming at me to keep moving. The truck's headlights didn't follow me into the woods, but I could still hear it. The engine rumbled in the distance, moving back and forth, circling. It wasn't leaving. It was waiting. I crouched low behind a tree, my pulse a frantic drumbeat in my chest. I had no idea where I was, but one thing was clear. I wasn't alone in these woods. A twig snapped behind me. I turned sharply, heart hammering. Nothing. But the air had changed. It was heavier, thicker, like the atmosphere before a storm. The trees didn't look right. Their trunks twisted unnaturally, bark peeling in long, curling strips. And then I heard it. A whisper, soft, faint, but close. I turned, scanning the darkness, but there was no one there. And yet, the whispering didn't stop. It was all around me now, words too garbled to understand, like a dozen voices speaking over one another in a secret conversation. I took a step back. My foot landed on something soft. I looked down. It was a shoe, half buried in the dirt, torn, old. And next to it, a hand. Pale fingers protruded from the earth, dirt caked under the fingernails, like someone had been buried alive. I staggered back, a strangled gasp escaping my throat. The whispers stopped, and then the fingers twitched. A deep, guttural groan rose from the ground. The dirt shifted, moved. I stumbled back as the hand dragged itself free. A second later, a face emerged from the soil, hollow eyes, mouth stretched open in a silent scream. It wasn't human anymore. It was something else. Something wrong. I turned and ran. Branches slashed at my arms, the ground uneven beneath my feet, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. I could hear something behind me, crawling, gasping, reaching. The trees blurred as I pushed forward, my only goal to get away from it, and then I saw it. A clearing. A house. The lights were on. A beacon in the darkness. I didn't think. I just ran toward it. I pounded on the door. "Please, open up!" For a moment, there was silence. Then the door creaked open. A woman stood there, her face pale, her eyes filled with something that looked a lot like fear. "You need to come inside," she whispered. I hesitated, glancing over my shoulder. The woods were dead silent now. Whatever had been chasing me was gone. But something about the woman's voice made my stomach knot. She wasn't telling me to come inside for safety. She was warning me. I hesitated on the doorstep, my breath heavy, my pulse still racing from the nightmare I had just escaped in. The woods. The woman's eyes were wide, filled with something close to fear, but not of me. "Come inside," she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. The trees behind me stood still, unnaturally quiet. The air was heavy, suffocating. I took a shaky step forward. She stepped aside, letting me in. The door clicked shut behind me. The house smelled of dust and old wood. A single flickering lamp cast weak light over the small living room. I scanned the space, trying to make sense of this place. It looked lived in, but not recently. "You saw it, didn't you?" she asked, her voice tight. I swallowed, my throat dry. "The truck?" She shook her head. "Not just the truck." The woman introduced herself as Margaret. She led me to a corner of the room where a large corkboard hung on the wall. My stomach dropped. Pinned to it were photographs, old and new. Dozens of faces, men, women. Some looked like they had been taken from missing person flyers. Others were grainy, captured from security cameras. All of them had one thing in common. They were last seen on this highway. "I've lived here for 15 years, Margaret said. I hear the stories. People disappear out there. Some turn up in ditches miles away. Others are never found. I felt a cold chill crawl down my spine. The truck? I asked. She nodded slowly. And something else. She pointed to a single, faded photograph pinned at the top. It showed a rundown motel, its neon sign barely visible. The Blue Ridge Motel, she murmured. I frowned. The name sounded familiar, and then it hit me. I had seen a sign for it on the highway, only a few miles back. My stomach twisted. The realization was sinking in. This wasn't just random bad luck. I had been led here. I had 100 questions, but before I could ask any of them, something banged upstairs. Margaret froze. The color drained from her face. Her hands tightened into fists. "There's no one else here," I whispered. She shook her head. "That's not true." We listened. The house creaked, the wood settling unnaturally. Then, another bang. Louder. I turned toward the staircase. The hallway at the top was pitch black, the weak light from the living room unable to reach that far. Something moved up there. A faint shuffling sound. Margaret placed a hand on my arm. "Whatever you do," she whispered, "don't go upstairs." The air inside the house felt heavier, like it was pressing against my skin. Margaret led me to the kitchen, her hands trembling. She poured us both a glass of water, though she barely touched hers. "What is this place?" I asked. She hesitated. "It's a safe house. Or at least, it used to be." I frowned. Safe from what? Before she could answer, the shuffling sound returned. This time, it wasn't just upstairs. It was in the walls. A faint, raspy breathing. Margaret's eyes darted toward the hallway. I followed her gaze, and that's when I saw it. A door. It hadn't been there before. I knew it hadn't. The old wallpaper around it was torn and peeling, as if the door had been hidden behind it all this time. My stomach knotted. Because I could hear something behind it, scraping, like fingernails against wood. Then a knock, slow, deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. Margaret stood up fast, grabbing my wrist. "We have to go," she said sharply. The knocking stopped. The handle began to turn. Margaret yanked me toward the front door. But before we could reach it, the knocking started again. This time, faster. Desperate. Then, the handle jerked violently. Something was trying to open it from the other side. The air turned ice cold. Margaret let out a choked breath. "Don't look at it!" The door shuddered. And then, it slowly swung open. Darkness. An endless, yawning void beyond the threshold. But something stood inside it. A figure, too tall, its limbs wrongly proportioned, its head tilted, peering into the dim kitchen light. I felt it looking at me. I couldn't see its face, but I could feel its smile. Margaret grabbed my arm and pulled me away before I could see anything more. We bolted toward the front door, and then all the lights in the house went out. The darkness was so thick I couldn't see my own hands. I reached out, my fingers brushing against Margaret's arm. She grabbed my wrist, her grip iron tight. I heard it move. The figure in the hallway. Slow, deliberate footsteps moving toward us. And then a low, rasping whisper. A voice that was not human. "You should have stayed on the road." Margaret's grip tightened. "We need to run." We moved blindly through the darkness, feeling our way toward the door. The house groaned, as if it was shifting around us. And then, a burst of headlights through the window. Bright. Blinding. outside. My stomach dropped. The truck. It had found me. Margaret and I stopped cold, caught between two evils, the thing inside the house, and whatever was waiting outside. The truck's engine rumbled to life. Margaret whispered one last thing before the horror began again. It's not just following you anymore. Now, it wants to take you. The truck's headlights cut through the darkness, painting long, twisting shadows on the walls of the house. The engine idled, a low, mechanical growl, as if the vehicle itself was alive. Margaret and I stood frozen in the dim light of the house. Behind us, the thing in the hallway shifted. I could feel it staring, waiting. Then, a voice, low, distorted, as if coming from a radio filled with static. "Ethan, get in the truck." A new terror crawled through my bones. It knew my name. Margaret grabbed my wrist, whispering fast. "We have to move! Now!" She yanked me toward the back of the house. My feet stumbled over the warped wooden floor as the front door burst open behind us. A wave of cold air swept in. I turned my head and saw the figure standing in the doorway. Arms were too long, stretching toward the floor. Its face was still hidden in darkness, but the way it tilted its head, the way its fingers twitched, it was watching me, waiting. Then, it took a step forward. I didn't wait to see more. Margaret dragged me into the kitchen, toward the back door. We shoved through it, spilling into the overgrown backyard. The truck's headlights swung, blinding me. The sound of footsteps thundered behind us. We ran. We ran toward the tree line, panting, our bodies burning with exhaustion. The truck's engine roared, and I heard the tires screech as it peeled away from the house, coming after us. Margaret and I hit the woods, the branches clawing at our skin, the night filled with the sound of rustling leaves and breaking twigs. The truck shouldn't have been able to follow, but when I glanced behind me, my stomach turned to ice. The headlights were still there, moving through the trees, like the forest itself was bending for it. Margaret gasped, pulling me toward an opening in the trees. Ahead, I saw the outline of a long stretch of road, the highway. My car was still there, right where I left it. We burst from the woods, my fingers fumbling for my keys as I lunged toward the car. Then I saw it, the motel sign, glowing in the distance. Blue Ridge Motel, vacancy. My pulse stopped. I had driven miles away from that place. I had never turned back. Yet there it was, standing right at the edge of the road, as if it had always been there. Margaret's voice was barely a whisper. "It won't let us go." The truck didn't follow us into the motel parking lot. It just stopped at the entrance, its headlights cutting through the mist, waiting. I was shaking as I stepped out of the car. The motel lobby was dimly lit, the air thick with the scent of mildew and something rotting underneath it. A bell sat on the counter. I reached out, hesitating, then pressed it once. Ding. The sound echoed unnaturally. A moment later, a woman stepped out of the shadows. Her name tag read, Linda. She smiled, but her eyes were wrong, too wide, too dark. "You must be tired," she said, handing me a rusted key. I didn't tell her my name, but she had already written it in the guest book. Room 6 smelled like dust and stale air. The furniture was outdated, the walls covered in faded wallpaper. The bathroom mirror had a crack running through it. I turned the sink faucet. The water ran red for a second, then cleared. I swallowed, gripping the sides of the sink. My reflection stared back at me. Then, it blinked. I hadn't blinked. A slow, sickening smile crept across my reflection's face. my own face. But it wasn't me. It tilted its head, like the figure in the house, and whispered in my own voice, "You should have stayed in the truck." The knocking started around midnight. Soft at first, then harder. I lay frozen in the bed, my pulse hammering. Margaret was in the chair by the window, gripping something in her hands, a rusted key from her pocket. "Don't open it," she whispered. The knocking grew more desperate. Then, a voice, low, raspy, distorted by static. "Ethan, let us in." My chest tightened. It was my own voice. I clamped my hands over my ears, trying to block it out. Then, I heard the sound of the lock clicking open. The door swung open on its own. Beyond it, the hallway stretched into impossible darkness. I couldn't see what was standing outside, but I could hear them breathing. Margaret grabbed my wrist, pulling me back. "Don't step out," she warned. "They'll take you." The figures in the hallway moved closer. Shadows, shifting unnaturally. Wrong shapes. One of them stepped into the dim motel light. It was a man, or at least, it looked like one. But his eyes were gone, hollow sockets staring back at me, and he was smiling. "Ethan," he said. I knew him. I had seen his face before. On the missing persons board at Margaret's house. He shouldn't be here. He was dead. The truck's horn blared outside, shaking the motel walls. Margaret turned to me, eyes wide. "You need to remember," she whispered. "Wyatt's after you." The missing man reached for me, and then the lights went out. I woke up in complete darkness. The room was gone. The motel was gone. I was standing in the middle of a deserted highway. The silence was unbearable, pressing in on my ears. Then I heard them. The whispers. Soft at first, like voices carried by the wind. Then louder, calling my name. A shape emerged. From the darkness ahead, the phantom truck. But this time, something was different. It wasn't just idling. It was waiting. For me. The whispers became a single, distorted voice. "You left them behind." I took a step back, my breath shuddering. Then, a hand grabbed my shoulder. I spun around, and the world shifted. The light flashed back, and I was in the motel room again. My lungs ached, as if I had been suffocating. Margaret was standing over me, shaking my shoulders. "Ethan, wake up!" I gasped, trying to focus. My skin was ice cold. The door was still wide open. The figures in the hallway were gone, but something was wrong. The walls, they were different now. Not just old. Burned. Charred black with soot. The motel wasn't abandoned. It had been destroyed. A long time ago. Margaret's voice was quiet. "This place isn't real." A rumbling noise filled the air. The truck. Still, waiting outside. My body ached as I stood, my mind racing. The motel was some kind of trap, a place that held the lost, people who had been taken. But why was I here? I turned toward the window and saw my own reflection. For a moment, I thought I was looking at myself. But then the reflection grinned. "You never left." My blood ran cold. Then, the truck's horn blared so loudly that the walls shook. The motel room collapsed around us, and suddenly, we were somewhere else. The world flashed again, and we were standing on a highway, not the same one from before. This one stretched endlessly into the fog. The motel was gone. The truck was gone. But I knew. It was still here, watching, waiting. Margaret gripped my arm. "Ethan, you have to remember." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Remember what?" She hesitated. Then she whispered something that made my stomach drop. "This is where you died." Flashes of memory slammed into me. A road just like this one, the truck's headlights blinding me, the screech of tires, metal twisting, my body being thrown forward, a moment of weightlessness before. Darkness. I stumbled back, gasping for air. "No, that's not... I'm still here." Margaret's face was pale. "You think you escaped that night, but the truck, it never let you go." My chest felt tight. I had survived that night. I had kept running. Hadn't I? Margaret shook her head. "This road is where you died, Ethan. The truck, it's part of you now." And then the horn blared again. But this time, it came from inside my own head. The fog parted, revealing the truck ahead, idling, waiting. And I understood. I was never escaping it. I was a part of it. The whispers surrounded. Me again. The lost voices. The people who had been taken. People like me. The truck door swung open. The driver's seat was empty. I felt a pull toward it. A cold, undeniable force dragging me forward. Margaret grabbed me. "Ethan, don't!" But I knew. I had two choices. Stay here, trapped in the endless road forever, or get in. Become one with the truck. The phantom. The hunter. The thing that never stops chasing. My hands shook. My breath came in ragged gasps. Then I stepped forward. Margaret's scream faded behind me. I climbed into the driver's seat. The truck's interior was cold, smelling of rust and dust. The wheel felt right under my fingers. The engine rumbled to life, a deep vibration through my chest. The whispers stopped. The world around me shifted. I wasn't on the road anymore. I was outside the motel, watching, waiting. A car pulled into the parking lot. A man stepped out looking lost, confused, just like I had been. And I knew. It was his turn. The truck's horn blared one last time, and I hit the gas. The truck's engine rumbled beneath me, sending vibrations through my bones. I watched as the man stepped out of his car, glancing around the parking lot with the same uneasy confusion I'd felt. He didn't know it yet, but his fate was sealed. The whispering voices returned, slithering through the cab like a cold wind. "Drive, Ethan." My hands tightened around the steering wheel. I had become the hunter, the same way it had hunted me. But something inside me resisted. I wasn't like it. I wasn't the truck. I was still Ethan Carter. I pulled my hands away from the wheel. My breath came in ragged gasps. "No," I whispered. "Not this time." The horn blared, louder than before. The air shimmered, and suddenly I was somewhere else. I was standing on a highway of shadows, a place where the sky was nothing but black void, and the road stretched into eternity. Figures lined the road, standing, like silent sentinels, their eyes hollow, their faces familiar. I saw them. The lost souls of the phantom truck, the ones who had driven before me, the ones who had never escaped. Their mouths moved, whispering words I couldn't hear. Then, one of them stepped forward, a man with burned flesh and empty eyes. His voice was broken. "There is no way out, Ethan." My pulse pounded in my ears. "There has to be," I rasped. The whispers grew louder. More figures stepped forward. A sea of doomed souls. Trapped. Just like I was. Unless I could break the cycle. The truck's horn blared. Again. The figures vanished, and I was back in the driver's seat. The man in the parking lot was still there, still unaware. The engine roared, trying to pull me forward, forcing me to continue the cycle. The whispers screamed now, tearing at my mind. Drive. Hunt. Take him. I reached for the keys, then ripped them out of the ignition. The truck shuddered violently. The whispers howled in agony. The air rippled, like reality itself was breaking apart. And then, the truck fought back. The steering wheel turned on its own. Thus, engine roared back to life, the doors locked. The truck wasn't just a machine. It was alive. It had let me think I was in control, but I never was. A voice echoed from the radio, deep and distorted. You are mine now. I struggled against the seatbelt pinning me down. The windshield cracked. Something pushed through the glass. A hand, long, twisted, blackened by smoke and fire, grabbing for my face. I screamed, my vision blurred. The world outside flickered. I saw two roads, one leading into darkness, the other back to the real world. Margaret's voice cut through the static. Ethan, you have to wake up. My breath hitched. Margaret. She was still out there, fighting for me. I gritted my teeth and reached for the door handle. The truck fought against me. The whispers screamed, but I pulled with everything I had, and then the door burst open. I fell into nothingness. I woke up on the side of the road. The night was silent. The truck was gone. Margaret was kneeling over me, her face pale and frightened. You're back, she whispered. I tried to sit up. My body ached, like I had been hit by a car or a truck. The motel was gone, nothing but an empty lot. Had it ever been there? Margaret helped me to my feet. We have to go. I nodded weakly. But as we turned toward the car, a sound echoed through the night. A low, distant rumbling, growing closer. The truck wasn't done with me yet. We ran, jumped into the car. The engine roared to life. Margaret floored the gas. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the empty road ahead. But in the rearview mirror, the truck's headlights appeared, blazing bright. Getting closer, a part of me knew the truth. I hadn't escaped. I never would. The phantom truck doesn't just chase you, it owns you, and once it finds you, it never lets go. The desert highway stretched endlessly before me, a black ribbon cutting through a wasteland of sand and shadows. My headlights barely pushed back the darkness, and the road signs were few and far between. The only thing keeping me company was the low hum of my engine and the occasional flicker of static from the old radio. I'd been driving for hours, the weight of exhaustion creeping into my bones. The night shift wasn't new to me. I'd been a long-haul trucker for nearly 10 years, but something about this particular stretch of road felt off. The sky was clear, but the stars seemed distant, like pinpricks in an infinite void. Then I saw him. A figure stood on the side of the road, barely visible in the glow of my headlights. A hitchhiker. He was just standing there, motionless, thumb not even out. Something about him unsettled me. But I had always been the type to help when I could. Maybe he was lost. Maybe his car broke. Down. I slowed down, the truck groaning in protest as I pulled onto the shoulder. As I got a better look, he seemed wrong. His clothes were dusty, torn in places, like he had been walking for days. His face was gaunt, his eyes sunken. But what got me the most was the way he stood, completely still. Too still. I leaned over, opening the passenger door. You need a ride? For a second, he didn't move. Then, as if waking from a trance, he blinked rapidly and nodded. Yeah, thank you. His voice was hoarse, dry like sandpaper. He climbed in, shutting the door behind him. As soon as he did, the temperature inside the cab dropped. Don't talk much when I drive, and I don't mind silence, but the quiet that settled between us felt heavy. He shifted in his seat, glancing at the side mirror like he was expecting something, or someone. "You been walking long?" I finally asked. He hesitated. "Yeah, too long." His voice was strained, like he didn't want to talk about it. I let it drop, focusing on the road. The radio crackled, a whisper of static breaking through before cutting out completely. "What's your name?" I asked. "Daniel," he said quickly. "Daniel Reeves." His eyes darted to the rearview mirror. I followed his gaze, but there was nothing behind us except the endless, empty road. Something about the way he kept looking back made my skin crawl. We drove in silence for a while. The miles rolled by, the darkness pressing in on either side. Of us. Then, Daniel's breathing changed. It became shallow, rapid. He was asleep, at least. I thought he was. But then he started mumbling. At first it was incoherent, just whispers under his breath. But as I listened, the words became clearer. "It's coming," he muttered. "It's coming. I shouldn't have taken it. It's coming." I tensed, gripping the wheel. "Hey man, you okay?" Daniel twitched violently, his fingers digging into the fabric of the seat. I reached out to shake him, but the moment my hand touched his shoulder, he screamed. A raw, animalistic scream that sent ice down my spine. His eyes snapped open, wide and wild. "It's here," he gasped. "Oh God, it's here." My heart hammered. "What the hell are you talking about?" Daniel twisted in his seat, staring out the window, breathing hard. His face had gone completely pale. "We have to keep driving," he whispered. "Don't stop. No matter what happens, don't stop." I checked my mirrors. Still nothing. Just an endless road stretching behind us. "Look, man," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You're freaking me out. What's going on?" Daniel shook his head, running a hand through his tangled hair. "You wouldn't believe me. Try me." He swallowed hard. "I found something. In the desert. A thing. I don't even know what it is, but ever since I took it, it's been following me." A chill crawled up my spine. "Who's following? You?" Daniel licked his lips, eyes flicking to the mirror again. "Not who. What?" A shiver ran through me. "What kind of thing?" I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. Daniel exhaled shakily. "I don't know what it is, but it's not human." I felt my stomach twist. This guy was either crazy or there was something in the darkness with us. The radio crackled again, a burst of static, followed by a voice. A whisper. "Jake." My hands went cold. I turned the dial, but the static only got louder. The whispering continued, voices layered, over each other, speaking in a language I didn't understand. Daniel grabbed my arm. "It knows your name." I wrenched my arm away, trying to keep my focus on the road. "How the hell does it know my name?" Daniel's hands trembled. "It's already looking at you." The hairs on my arms stood up. Something shifted in the rearview mirror, a shadow, moving, but there was nothing there. I slammed my foot on the gas. We drove in silence, both of us tense, listening. Then suddenly, Daniel screamed again. He fumbled with the door handle. "What are you doing?" I shouted. "I can't stay here." His voice was wild with terror. "If I stay, it'll take us both. I have to go. I have to go now." And before I could stop him, before I could even react, he jumped. The door swung open. He tumbled onto the road, rolling into the dust. I slammed the brakes, my heart hammering. When I looked in the mirror, Daniel was gone. Just gone. The only thing left was his backpack, lying in the middle of the empty road, and in the silence that Followed, a new sound reached my ears, a whisper from the back of my truck. "Keep driving." The moment Daniel hit the road and vanished into the darkness, the silence that followed was unnatural. The only sound was my truck's engine, humming low like a growl in the night. I gripped the wheel tightly, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Did I really see him jump? Did I really hear that whisper in the back of the truck? The wind howled outside, rattling the cab slightly, but I felt no breeze. The air was thick, heavy, and then, bang! Something slammed against the back of the truck. Hard. I nearly jumped out of my seat, my breath hitching. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't an animal. It was something else. And then came the sound that made my blood run cold. A dragging noise. Something was moving in the cargo trailer. Something I didn't put there. I forced myself to breathe, staring at the small rearview mirror. It was angled just enough to catch a glimpse of the dark interior of the trailer. At first, there was nothing. Just darkness. Then, a shape. A shadow shifting in the blackness. The air inside the cab dropped to an unbearable chill. My fingers hovered over the radio dial, desperate for any sound to drown out the suffocating silence. But the moment I turned it on, I regretted it. The speakers crackled. The same whispers as before. Layered voices, unintelligible words. But beneath them, one stood. Out. A voice I recognized. Daniel. Jake. My heart slammed against my ribs. Jake. Don't look back. I reached for the CB radio, static hissing as I turned the knob. Hello? Who the hell is this? Silence. Then, right next to my ear, a breath, a voice, whispering inside the cab. Keep driving. I didn't think. I just floored it. The truck roared forward, tires screeching against the pavement. The whispers in the radio faded, but the feeling didn't. Someone, or something, was still inside my truck. I reached for my gun, a small .357 revolver I kept in the glove compartment. I didn't believe in ghosts, demons, or any of that bullshit. But at that moment, I was ready to shoot at shadows if it meant staying alive. But before I could grab it, the passenger door opened. I whipped my head to the side, my heart in my throat. The door was wide open, swinging slightly with the motion of the truck. There was no one there. Then, a voice from the passenger seat. Jake! I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Because sitting right next to me, Daniel was back. His eyes were wrong, hollow, black as ink, and he was smiling. I slammed the brakes, hard. The truck screeched to a stop, tires smoking, my head whipping forward. For a split second, the headlights illuminated the road ahead, and I saw something standing there. Not Daniel, not human. A figure, tall, thin, its skin stretched too tight over its bones, its mouth too wide. It was smiling, and then it moved. Fast. It rushed toward the truck, and before I could even react, the headlights flickered out. I couldn't see. I couldn't breathe. The truck was dead. No lights. No engine. Just the sound of something moving outside. The air inside the cab felt heavy, like I was being watched from every direction. Then, tap, tap, tap. Something knocked on the driver's side window. I turned. Nothing. I turned back. Daniel was inches. From my face, I screamed. He grabbed me, his fingers too cold, too strong, and whispered in my ear, "You should have never picked me up." And then, the cab filled with shadows. I don't know how I did it. I don't even remember reaching for the door handle. But suddenly, I was outside, running. running into the endless desert with nothing but my footsteps and the sound of something chasing me. I turned, gasping for breath. The truck was gone. The road was gone. Everything was gone. Just endless, empty darkness. Then a whisper. "Keep running." I did. And that's when I saw it. A figure standing in the distance. Tall. Waiting. Felt my body freeze as it lifted its hand and pointed right at me. The last thing I remember was falling into the dark. I woke up with a gasp, back in my truck, the engine running, the headlights illuminating the road ahead. No sign of Daniel, no sign of anything. I checked the time. It was exactly the same as when I picked Daniel up. Had it even happened? Looked at the passenger seat. A single object sat there. A small, black stone. I picked it up, my fingers tingling as soon as I touched it. A whisper echoed in my head. "You brought it with you." The desert outside the window seemed darker, and, in the rearview mirror, something moved. I should have thrown the stone away. The moment I saw it, I knew. It wasn't just a rock. It wasn't some random object Daniel had. It was wrong, and now, it was mine. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The highway stretched ahead, empty, silent. But something felt off. The world looked too still. No wind, no sound. Even my truck's engine hummed in an almost unnatural rhythm, like it was whispering something beneath the noise. A thought crept into my mind, uninvited. I never left that road. The idea hit me like a gut punch. What if I was still there? What if I never got back in the truck? I swallowed hard, shaking my head. Focus. Just keep driving. Keep moving. But the longer I drove, the more I felt it. Something was watching me. An hour passed. Or maybe 5 minutes. I wasn't sure anymore. The road stretched endlessly. The desert, on either side, vast and empty. But no matter how far I went, the feeling didn't fade. And then, the radio crackled. Just once, like a whisper of static. I ignored it, keeping my hands on the wheel. Then, a click. The radio turned on. Jake. I slammed my foot on the brakes. The truck skidded, tires screeching against the asphalt. I turned towards the passenger seat. Empty. I forced out a breath, my heart racing. "You're losing it." I reached for the radio knob to turn it off. A hand grabbed, my wrist cold, too tight. I looked down. Daniel's fingers were wrapped around my arm. I screamed, jerking back so hard I nearly fell out of my seat. The moment I blinked, he was gone. Nothing but the empty cab. But my skin burned where he had touched. Me, like a lingering cold, sinking into my bones. I looked at my wrist. A bruise was forming. Finger marks. This wasn't just paranoia. Something was still here, and it wasn't letting go. The stone in the passenger seat seemed darker, like it had absorbed the shadows around it. I reached for it, hesitated, then finally grabbed it, my fingers wrapping around its cold, smooth surface. Instantly, my vision blurred. The truck vanished, and I was somewhere else. The world shifted. The road was gone. The truck, gone. I was standing in a desert under a black sky, the air heavy with the scent of dust and something rotting. Ahead of me, a figure. Not Daniel. Not human. Tall, impossibly thin, with skin stretched too tight over its bones. It didn't move, but I could feel it smiling. In its hands, it held the stone, the same one in my pocket. I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move. The figure lifted the stone higher, and suddenly, the sky split open. A sound filled the air. Not a scream, not a whisper. Something in between. Like 1,000 voices speaking at once, layered over a hum that made my teeth ache. The ground beneath me cracked. Black tendrils slithered from the earth, reaching towards me. The figure tilted its head. "You took it." Its voice was inside my head. "Now, it takes you." I tried to move, tried to do anything, but the tendrils wrapped around my ankles. I was sinking into something cold, something endless. I woke up gasping. Back in the truck, the headlights illuminating the road. Like nothing had happened, except the bruises were still on my wrist, and the stone was still in my hand. A low breath echoed in the cab. "You brought it back." I turned slowly. Daniel was sitting in the passenger seat, smiling. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the stone out the window and never look back. But I didn't, because something inside me already knew. It wouldn't matter. I was on a road that no longer had an end. I wasn't driving anymore. I was being led. Somewhere I couldn't escape. And in the distance, a figure stood, waiting, watching, smiling. I shouldn't be here. But I was. The highway had been empty. Just me, the road, and that thing crawling inside my thoughts. Then, out of nowhere, lights. A town appeared on the horizon, small, quiet, its street lamps glowing faintly against the night. It looked normal, but it wasn't. Something was wrong. No signs, no cars, no people. Yet every building's windows were lit, like someone was inside, watching. I should have kept driving, but my hands turned the wheel on their own, like the truck wanted to go there. I rolled into the town's only street, my headlights washing over empty sidewalks. Something about this place made my skin crawl. It looked like a ghost town that had never died. The neon sign of a diner flickered, open 24/7. But the inside, completely still. Chairs neatly tucked under tables, a coffee cup sitting half full at the counter, a ceiling fan spinning in slow, lazy circles, as if someone had been there just moments ago. Then I saw it, Daniel's jacket, hanging on a chair inside. Slammed the brakes. My breath caught in my throat. I knew that jacket. I had seen Daniel wearing it when he jumped out of my truck, but that was miles ago. He couldn't be here, right? I forced myself to step inside. The bell above the door jingled, and suddenly, the silence felt deafening. My boots echoed on the checkerboard floor as I walked up to the counter. And then I saw him. A man sat on a stool, facing away from me. He was still, too still. His back rose and fell, breathing, but he didn't move, didn't react. The radio behind the counter crackled to life. A low voice whispered through the static. "Jake." The man turned his head slightly, and my stomach dropped. It wasn't a person. Not really. His face was wrong, like it had been stretched too tight over his skull, his mouth hanging slightly open as if he was mid-scream, but frozen. And his eyes? Gone, just empty black sockets. But I knew. He was looking at me. I ran, bursting out of the diner, gasping for breath. The street was still empty, but now the buildings looked closer, like the town itself was shrinking. I jumped into the truck, slammed the door, and turned the key. Click, 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 nothing. The engine was dead. I looked up. The man from the diner was standing in the middle of the road, still facing me, still watching. And then, every light in the town turned off, one by one, until there was nothing but darkness and the sound of footsteps coming closer. I tried to stay still, tried to breathe quietly, but the whispers were everywhere. I turned, and they were standing outside my truck. People. Or at least, they looked like people, dozens of them, some missing eyes, some with faces frozen in silent screams. They stood perfectly still, until they all spoke at once. "You brought it here." I felt something move in my pocket. The stone. It was warm. Throbbing. Like a heartbeat. "You have to give it back," the voices said. I wanted to throw it out the window, but I couldn't. Something inside me whispered, "It's too late." The people outside started smiling, their mouths stretching too wide. "It wants you now." I grabbed the wheel. I didn't care if the truck wouldn't start. I just needed to move. The headlights flickered. For a split second, I saw the road again. Empty. Normal. And then I saw Daniel, standing in the middle of the street. His face wasn't human anymore. Black sockets for eyes. His skin stretched thin, a hand outstretched, waiting. Then he opened his mouth, and I heard the sound again. That awful, inhuman hum that made my teeth feel like they were shattering. The whispers turned to screams, my headlights exploded, and the town vanished. I was back. On the highway. Alone. The truck rumbled beneath me, moving again. The town was gone, like it had never been there. But something was different. The road signs had changed. They didn't show distances anymore, just one word: nowhere. I checked my mirror. Daniel was sitting in the back seat, smiling, waiting, and in my pocket, the stone burned. I kept driving. Mile after mile, the highway stretched ahead. Endless. No signs, no turns, no exits. Just the same stretch of road looping, over and over. I checked the odometer. It still read 367 miles. The same number as before. I had been driving for hours, but I wasn't moving. Something was wrong. I gripped the wheel tighter. Then the radio crackled. A soft voice whispered through the static. "You should have left it behind." Daniel's voice. I twisted the dial. Nothing but static. But as I turned it, I heard breathing. Slow. Rhythmic. Like something was inside the truck. I glanced at the rearview mirror. Daniel was still there, sitting in the back seat. But he wasn't moving. Just staring, his lips barely parted, like he was whispering something. But no sound came out. I turned around. The back seat was empty, but in the mirror, he was still there. Smiling. I slammed my foot on the gas. The truck lurched forward. I had to get out. Of here. Find a way off this road. But then the steering wheel jerked. By itself. No. I tried to turn it back. It wouldn't move. It was driving on its own, and the headlights, they flickered, then turned off, plunging me into darkness, and that's when I heard it, the humming, growing louder, coming from the engine itself. The dashboard lights flickered, but they weren't numbers anymore. Just one word, glowing in red. Listen. Then the truck exhaled, a long, slow breath, like it was alive. The seat beneath me shuddered. The leather pulsed, like veins beneath skin. I reached for the door handle. It melted under my fingers. The truck wasn't letting me out. The radio clicked back on. Static. Then, a voice. "Give it back." I froze. The sound wasn't coming from the radio. It was coming from the engine. A deep, guttural voice, like the truck itself was speaking. "Jake, give it back." The hood bulged, like something was inside it, moving, squirming, trying to break out. Pressed the brakes. Nothing. The truck kept accelerating. The speedometer climbed, some to 80 miles to 90 miles, and then the glove compartment opened by itself. Inside was the stone. I had thrown it away, but it came back. I grabbed it. It was boiling hot. My skin sizzled, and that's when the dashboard started bleeding. Thick, black liquid oozed from the vents. It smelled like burnt flesh, and then the truck spoke again. "Keep driving." The world outside changed. The road stretched out into a black void. No stars, no sky, just nothing. And in the distance, a figure stood in the middle of the road. Daniel, his arms outstretched, waiting. The truck didn't slow down. It was going to hit him. I yanked the wheel, but it didn't budge. The truck was in control now, and Daniel, he just smiled as the truck plowed straight into him. Impact. A sickening crunch. Then, silence. The truck rolled to a stop. The headlights flickered back on. Daniel was gone, and something else was standing in his place. Something taller, thinner, its face, a blank void. It reached out a long, skeletal hand and touched the hood of the truck. The engine shuddered. Then, everything went black. Everything was black. I wasn't in my truck anymore. I wasn't anywhere. No road, no stars, no sky. Just endless void, and in front of me, the figure that took Daniel's place. Tall, motionless, featureless. But I knew it was looking at me, even without eyes. Then, it spoke. "Jake." I flinched, not because of its voice, but because it was my own. A perfect copy, like I was talking to myself. The thing lifted its hand, and suddenly I was back on the road. But something was wrong. I wasn't in the truck. I was standing in the middle of the highway, alone. And then, headlights appeared. A truck. My truck. Rumbling down the road toward me. Behind the wheel, a driver. His face twisted in terror. And that's when I realized it was Daniel. I wasn't the driver anymore. I was the hitchhiker. The truck sped toward me. Tried to move, but I couldn't. I was frozen, just like Daniel had been. I understood now. The curse wasn't about the stone. It was about the role we played. First, the driver. Then, the hitchhiker. A cycle that never ended. The moment I picked up, Daniel, I had taken his place, and now it was time for someone else to pick me up. I never liked cruise ships. They were floating cities packed with fake smiles, overworked staff, and passengers who drank too much and cared too little. But I needed the job, and Neptune's Grace was a steady paycheck. I was the chief security officer responsible for keeping drunks from fighting, thieves from stealing, and making sure no one went overboard. Simple. At least that's what I thought. Rachel Carter, a deck steward, was reported missing on day 7 of the voyage. 7:45 a.m. Her shift started, but she never showed up. 08:30 a.m. A crewmate knocked. On her cabin door, no answer. 09:15 a.m. A supervisor called me. I went to her cabin on deck 3 with my keycard. I knocked. No answer. The silence felt wrong. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. Her uniform was folded neatly on the bed. Her wallet, phone, and shoes were still there. People don't just vanish barefoot. The ship had over 200 cameras in hallways, dining, rooms, decks. I pulled up the security footage from the night before. 2:17 a.m. Rachel Carter walks onto the deck. 02:18 a.m. She stands by the railing, staring at the ocean. 02:19 a.m. She whispers something, then she's gone. Not jumped, not pulled, not walked away. One frame she's there. The next, she's missing. I replayed it 10 times. My stomach turned. This didn't make sense. That night, I reviewed the footage again in my security office. The ship was quiet. Then through my radio I heard it, a soft whisper. Ethan. I froze. It wasn't static. Someone said my name. I grabbed the radio. Who's there? No response. I checked the CCTV cameras. The hallway outside my office was empty. The whisper came again. Help me. Rachel's voice. I felt cold all over. I turned off the radio. The next morning I returned to the deck where Rachel was last seen. The air smelled heavier. I searched near the railing, and that's when I found it. Her ID badge and radio. But something else too, a wet footprint, not leading toward the railing, leading away from it. I stared at the footprint, heart pounding. Rachel didn't fall overboard. She walked away. But how? Where? Did she go? I told Captain Reynolds everything. He listened, expressionless. Then he leaned forward. You don't talk about this again. I frowned. Sir, a crew member is missing. She's gone. His voice was flat. We'll say she fell. The passengers don't need to know. I clenched my jaw. Something wasn't right. What about the security footage? I asked. The captain's eyes were cold. Erase it. That night, I dreamed of the ocean. Black waves stretching endlessly. A voice calling my name. A pale hand breaking. The surface, Rachel's hand. I woke up, gasping. The room was dark. Then, a sound. A wet drip. I turned my head and saw the footprints. Wet. Leading from the door to my bed. My blood turned to ice. Someone, or something, had been inside my room. I broke orders. I went to Rachel's cabin again and found something under her. Mattress. Her journal. The last page was written the night she vanished. It read, I hear it in the vents. It knows my name. I think it wants me to follow. I felt sick. A soft breeze brushed past my ear. A whisper. Ethan. I spun around. Rachel's uniform was hanging in the closet. It had been dry before. Now, it was dripping wet. I went to the engine room. Brian Nolan, the lead engineer, was waiting for me. You shouldn't be asking questions, he said. I shoved the journal at him. Tell me what's happening. He hesitated. Then, we're not supposed to sail this route. I frowned. What do you mean? There's something in these waters, he whispered. It takes people, leaves no trace. I stared at him. How do we stop it? Brian's eyes darkened. You don't. I walked back to my office. The ship felt different, quieter, like it was holding its breath. I glanced at the porthole. The ocean was black. Then I saw it. A face staring at me. Not my reflection. Rachel. Mouth open, eyes hollow. I turned, heart pounding. But there was no one behind me. I looked back at the porthole, and my own reflection smiled, even though I wasn't smiling. The next morning I was called to the captain's office. Captain Reynolds sat behind, his desk staring at me like I was a problem he needed to fix. You're not sleeping, he said. I didn't respond. You're seeing things. He leaned forward. You'll stop. I clenched my fists. Sir, something is wrong with this ship. The security footage. The footage is gone. His voice was final. So is Rachel. My stomach dropped. Did you erase it? I asked. Captain Reynolds smiled. We take care of our own. I wanted to press him further, but I saw something in his eyes, fear. Not of me, of whatever was out there. That night, I stayed in my office, reading Rachel's journal. I hear it in the vents, she wrote. At exactly 3 a.m., I heard it too, a faint scraping sound. Coming from the air vent above me, slow, deliberate, like nails dragging against metal. I reached for my flashlight, shined it into the vent. Something moved. A shadow. Then a wet whisper. Ethan, help me. I fell back, knocking over my chair. The vent cover rattled. I didn't wait. I grabbed my keys and ran. The ship had a staff-only pool on deck 5. It was always empty at night, but as I passed it, I noticed something. The water was red. I stopped, stared. Trick of the light. Then I saw something floating. A uniform, Rachel's, dripping wet. I reached for my radio, but before I could speak, a hand burst from the water. It grabbed my wrist, cold, slimy, strong. Rachel's face surfaced, eyes wide and empty. Water poured from her open mouth, then she spoke, but her lips didn't move. You're next. I tore free, stumbling back. The pool was clear again. The uniform was gone. Had I imagined it, or was the ship playing tricks on me? After what happened at the pool, I needed answers. I went to Brian Nolan, the lead engineer. I told him everything. He looked tired, like he'd seen too much. There's a door on deck 1, he finally said. A door we never open. I frowned. What's behind it? Brian's voice was a whisper. The reason Rachel disappeared. That night, I stayed awake, watching the hallway outside my room. I needed to see if it was real. If Rachel, or whatever was pretending to be her, was really there. 12 a.m. The lights flickered. Footsteps echoed down the hall. Slow, uneven. I gripped my baton. A shadow passed my door. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then a soft knock. 3 taps. I reached for the doorknob and froze. A whisper drifted through the keyhole. Let me in, Ethan. I kicked the door shut and stepped back. I didn't sleep after that. I confronted Brian the next morning. I want to see the door. He hesitated, then nodded. We walked to deck 1, to a door with no label, no keycard slot, no handle, just bolted metal. Brian pulled out a rusted key, unlocked it. The door groaned open, and behind it, stairs, leading down. We stepped inside. The air was damp, smelled like rotting wood and salt. The hallway was narrow, lined with doors that had no names. Where does this lead? I whispered. Brian's face was pale. The part of the ship that shouldn't exist. Then he pointed at a wall covered in old names. Rachel's name was there, scratched into the metal, and next to it, mine. My stomach dropped. How did my name get here? Brian swallowed hard. She called you, didn't she? I nodded slowly. Brian exhaled. Then you're already marked. We moved deeper. The hallway got colder. Then we heard it, a low, gurgling scream, coming from behind one of the doors. Brian grabbed my arm. Don't open it. But I did. Inside, a room filled with water, black, endless, and floating in the middle. Rachel, eyes open, mouth moving, whispering my name. Then her eyes locked onto mine, and the water began to rise. We ran. Back up the stairs, back to the door. We slammed. It shut, locked it. I turned to Brian. What the hell was that? His hands were shaking. This ship doesn't belong to us, he whispered. It belongs to whatever lives below. I went to my room, locked the door, stared at my reflection. My heart was still racing. Then, my reflection blinked. Even though I didn't. And then it smiled. Even though my face stayed frozen, and it whispered, "We're not done yet." I could feel it now. It wasn't just the whispers. It wasn't just the shadows. It was the ship itself. The walls seemed to pulse, like it was alive, breathing. I barely slept that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every moan of the ship's hull, set my nerves on edge. At 3 a.m., again, I heard it. The sound that had become all too familiar. The scraping. It was coming from the vent system again. I threw the covers off and grabbed my flashlight. I was done waiting. I climbed up to the ceiling, prying the vent cover off. But what I saw wasn't a shadow. It was a face, a pale, distorted face, Rachel's face, staring back at me from within the walls. I screamed, but it didn't move. It didn't blink. It just watched. The lights flickered. I bolted for the door, but before I could reach the handle, the face disappeared, just like that, as if the ship had swallowed it whole. I went to Brian the next morning. "I saw her again," I said. "In the vent." His face went pale. "You shouldn't have done that," he muttered. "I need to know what's happening on this ship, Brian," I pressed. "I need to understand why she's here." Brian hesitated. "I told you, Ethan. This ship isn't just haunted. It's a trap." "What do you mean?" "Rachel," he said, his voice trembling. "She was never supposed to leave." My stomach sank. "What are you talking about?" He walked me to the staff room and showed me a logbook. The entries were dated back over the years, decades even. I scanned the pages, feeling my heart thud in my chest. "Look here," he said, pointing to a name, Eliza Carter. "This is the original. Passenger," Brian continued. "She disappeared. Same as Rachel, and many others." I felt a cold wave of dread sweep over me. Rachel wasn't the first. She was just the latest, and whatever was taking people on this ship was now coming for me. That night, I wandered the ship in a haze. I couldn't stop thinking about the name in the logbook, Eliza Carter. What happened to her? Why did the name seem so familiar? As I wandered into the lower decks, I noticed a door I hadn't seen before. It was hidden behind a curtain, sealed off like the rest of the ship's forgotten rooms. I couldn't resist. I pulled open the heavy door. Inside was a room unlike any I'd seen before. The walls were lined with mirrors, hundreds of them. Each one was distorted. The reflection didn't match the room. I stepped inside, and the door slammed shut behind me. I was trapped. The mirrors seemed to move, like they were watching me, bending and shifting. I stepped forward, my heart racing. But I was no longer alone. There, in the mirror, was Rachel. Her face was twisted, her eyes empty and void. She reached out, her fingers pressing against the glass, as if begging me to join her. I slammed my fists against the mirror, but it wouldn't budge. The reflection laughed. The mirrors were alive, and they were trapping me here. I felt my legs give way beneath me, and just as I was about to lose consciousness, the door burst open. Brian was there, pulling me out. The next day, I felt like I was losing my grip. I couldn't escape the echo of Rachel's face in the Mirror dot couldn't shake the feeling that something was closing in on me. I was certain now that whatever was haunting the ship, it wasn't finished with me. At breakfast, I overheard a conversation between two crew members. They were talking about Eliza Carter, the original passenger who disappeared. She was seen in the mirrors, one of them whispered. Just like Rachel. My heart skipped a beat. I needed to know more. I rushed to Brian. I need to find out everything about Eliza Carter. He gave me a warning look. You don't know what you're asking, Ethan. Please, Brian, I have to. He sighed and pulled me into the back office. He handed me an old file, faded and torn. Inside was a photograph of a woman. A beautiful woman. Eliza Carter. But behind her, there was something off. In the reflection of the glass in the photo, I saw a shadowy figure. The same shadow that had been following me. Look closer, Brian said softly. I squinted at the photograph, and then I saw it. The figure in the glass was smiling, a grin that stretched far too wide. Brian's warning echoed in my mind. You don't know what you're asking, Ethan, but it was too late. I'd already opened the door to something I couldn't close. The ship wasn't haunted, it was alive, and it had already marked me. I could feel it in the air, something cold brushing against my skin. A presence watching me. Presence that was closing in, and it wasn't done yet. I couldn't sleep that night. The ship was different. It felt like it was watching me, its metal creaking in ways I had never noticed before. I lay in my bunk, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the engines beneath me. Then came the sound, the faintest scraping noise again. Immediately sat up, my heart hammering in my chest. It wasn't just in my head. I grabbed the flashlight, my hand shaking. I crept to the door, pushing it open, but before I could take another step, I heard it. A voice, so soft and gentle, yet filled with a chilling sadness. Ethan, it was Rachel. I froze, unable to move. Ethan, help me. I turned toward the voice, but saw nothing, only darkness. The voice was getting louder now. It echoed down the hall, as though the ship itself was whispering to me, beckoning me closer. I didn't want to go, but my feet moved of their own accord. It was like being pulled into the depths of the sea, helpless and drowning. I reached the lower deck, where the whispers were the loudest, and there she was. Rachel. She stood in front of me, her face pale, her body flickering like a fading light. Her eyes were empty, hollow, like the life had been drained from her. And then she whispered again, "Help me." I reached out for her, but as my hand brushed against her arm, she vanished into thin air. The chill in the air intensified, and the temperature seemed to plummet. I was suddenly alone in the blackness of the lower deck, the only sound being the pounding of my heart in my chest. Then I heard the scraping again, this time closer, louder, more urgent. I turned to face it, and there, standing at the far end of the hallway, was a shadow. It wasn't a person, or at least it didn't seem like one. It was a shifting darkness, something that seemed to absorb the light around it. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The figure began to move toward me, its form flickering like an old film reel, then coming into sharp focus. It wasn't human. It was something otherworldly, something that existed between the fabric of time and space. Could feel its presence crawling under my skin, the cold, suffocating pressure on my chest. Help me. The voice was coming from within me now. The entity was inside my mind, speaking through my thoughts. It had been waiting for someone to break, to open the door for it. And now I had done just that. I had to understand what was happening, had to know what this thing was, how it could control the ship, how it could turn the crew into its puppets. I couldn't keep running. I went back to the old logbook Brian had shown me, hoping it held some kind of clue. The pages felt heavier now, as though they were filled with something more than just ink and paper. I flipped through them frantically, my mind racing, and then I saw it. The ship. The Orpheus. It wasn't just a vessel. It was a gateway. The logbook detailed the ship's original design, built to carry a dark cargo. A cargo of souls. Eliza Carter had been the first victim, but she had unwittingly opened the door. Rachel had tried to escape, but she was dragged back, and now I was part of the curse. The ship had a life force of its own, and it was feeding off the energy of the living. It didn't care about the dead, it wanted more. And I was its next victim. I couldn't let this continue. I had to break the cycle. Found Brian in the maintenance room. "Brian," I said, my voice shaking. "We need to stop the ship." He looked at me, his face pale. "You don't understand. The ship can't be stopped," he said, his voice distant. "It's already too late. Once it starts, there's no turning back." "Then help me find a way," I pleaded. Brian hesitated, then led me to a hidden chamber deep in the heart of the ship. It was an ancient, forgotten part of the vessel where the rituals had been performed. Brian opened a dusty chest and pulled out an ancient book, the source of the curse. "This is how they kept it alive," he explained. "The rituals were meant to sacrifice the souls of those who sailed on it." I looked at him, horrified. "And if we don't stop it?" I whispered. "We become part of it," he said softly. Before I could respond, I heard it again. The scraping. But this time it was louder, more persistent. We turned to see the shadow closing in, the entity crawling toward us like a dark wave. Felt my pulse quicken. The ritual. It had to work. We raced to the center of the ship, where the ritual was supposed to take place. The shadow was now everywhere, pressing in from all sides. The mirrors, the walls, they all shimmered with its presence. Brian began chanting from the ancient book, but it was too late. The entity was already inside the walls. It manifested in front of us, its form shifting, pulsating with hunger. I stepped forward, feeling the overwhelming weight of its gaze. This was it. I had to stop it. But as I raised my hands, I felt the cold from the entity creep into my veins. It was too strong. I was too weak. I could feel myself slipping. But then, I heard Rachel's voice. "Help me." I turned toward the voice, and for the first time I saw her clearly, not as a ghost, but as a part of me. She was the key to stopping it. With everything I had left, I reached out and grabbed her hand. And in that moment, the ship seemed to shudder. The shadows screamed. And then, suddenly, silence. I could feel my heart pounding in my ears, the blood rushing through my veins. Rachel's hand felt warm, but the chill of the ship still gnawed at me. We stood in the middle of the ritual room, facing the blackness that had swallowed the ship whole. The shadows around us thickened, pulsing with an otherworldly energy, and I could feel the walls of the ship shifting. It was as though the very ship itself was alive, breathing, and it was hungry. The entity's form loomed above us, its eyes hollow, the darkness pooling where its face should have been. I could hear its voice, now filling my mind, its whispers so loud they were almost deafening. "You cannot escape. You belong to me. It was stronger now. I had no idea how much longer I could hold on. "What do you want from us?" I shouted, trying to sound brave, but I could feel my legs shaking. "Everything," the voice answered, its tone dripping with malice. I stepped back, my hand still clutching Rachel's, and then I saw it. The mirror. The mirror from the ritual room. It had started to glow, faintly at first, but now its light was becoming brighter, almost blinding. The reflection wasn't right. It showed the ship, but not the ship as it was now. This was the ship from long ago, its original design, when it had been built. I could see the rituals, the sacrifices, the faces of the lost souls. The ones who had been claimed by the entity appeared in the mirror, and they were all staring at me. "No," I whispered, taking a step back. This was it. This was how it all began. The ship had been built to feed the entity, to bring it power. The rituals had been done in secret, hidden away, but they had left a mark, a scar, on the ship itself. The curse was tied to the very metal of the Orpheus. Turned to Brian, who was still chanting in desperation. "We need to destroy the mirror," I shouted. He hesitated for just a second, but then he nodded. We rushed toward it, the entity's voice growing louder, almost deafening. "No one escapes. Me. Not now. Not ever." We were close to the mirror, but something stopped us. A wave of force struck us, pushing us backward, slamming us against the wall. I gasped for air, my chest tightening as the entity closed in. I could feel the coldness, like it was wrapping around my heart, freezing me from the inside out. Brian was on the floor, barely conscious. I had to keep going. I pushed myself up, stumbling toward the mirror, but I could see it now. The reflection wasn't just of the ship. It was of me. I was standing there, in the mirror, but my eyes were glowing red, my face twisted into something that wasn't mine. I could see myself being pulled into the reflection, my body moving against my will, being consumed by the ship's darkness. It was too late. The entity had already claimed me. But there was still one chance. I focused on Rachel, the only thing keeping me tethered to the world of the living. "Rachel," I shouted, my voice breaking. And in that moment, something changed. The mirror shattered. Shards of glass flew through the air, cutting through the dark energy that surrounded us. The voice of the entity screamed in rage, but it was too late. The ship shuddered, its grip loosening for the first time in what felt like forever. But the ship didn't stop. It kept moving, as though it was alive, and I knew we weren't free yet. I ran back to Brian, helping him to his feet. "We have to leave," I said, breathless. He nodded, but his face was pale. We ran through the darkened hallways, the ship groaning as if it were dying. The scraping sound had stopped, but the silence was worse. The entity was still with us. We reached the lifeboats, but I hesitated. I looked back at the ship, feeling a strange pull, like something was calling me. Rachel was still with me, her voice whispering in my mind, guiding me. "You have to make a choice." I turned to Brian. "We have to sink it," I said. "What?" he asked, his face pale. "This ship is cursed," I said, looking at the dark waters ahead. "We can't leave it to keep haunting the seas. We have to end this." He nodded, though I could see the fear in his eyes. Together, we used the ship's controls to set it on course, heading straight into the deepest part of the ocean. The ship groaned beneath us, but I knew it was already too late. We had made our choice. The water rushed over the deck, the ship sinking deeper with every passing moment. I could hear the entity's final scream as the Orpheus was swallowed by the sea. But as the waves closed over the ship, I felt a strange sense of peace. The curse was broken, Rachel was free, and I was finally safe. But even as the Orpheus sank beneath the waves, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me, waiting for me to make the wrong move. And, somewhere out in the ocean, the shadow still lingered, waiting for its next victim. The air around us felt strangely still as we watched the Orpheus sink, its massive hull groaning in protest as the water claimed it piece by piece. It was over. Or was it? I stood there, watching the sinking ship with an eerie sense of finality. The sea stretched endlessly in all directions, and yet, something felt wrong. My fingers trembled as I gripped the lifeboat's edge, Rachel beside me, her face pale but calm. She had been with me since that very first night, and somehow, I knew she had never truly left. The dark waters lapped at the sides of our tiny boat, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. "It's over, right?" Brian asked, his voice uncertain, as if even he didn't believe it. I nodded, though my gut twisted in a way I couldn't explain. It was too quiet, too peaceful. Then I saw something. It was faint at first, a shadow just beneath the surface of the water, but it grew, expanding like a ripple in a storm, heading directly for us. "No," I whispered, my breath catching in my throat. "What is it?" Rachel asked, her voice trembling now, her hand gripping mine. I could feel her unease, and I knew we weren't just imagining it. There was something beneath us, something alive, something waiting. "It can't be," I muttered to myself. The ship was gone. It was supposed to be gone, but the shadow came closer. "I won't let you take her." The words escaped my lips before I could stop them. The shadow stopped moving. For a moment, there was silence, a tension thick enough to suffocate. Then, it surged forward, faster than I could react, and before I knew it, I was plunged underwater. The cold hit me first, the icy grip of the ocean surrounding me. My lungs burned as I tried to scream, but the water poured into my mouth, choking me. I tried to thrash, to push against the darkness, but it was everywhere. The last thing I saw before the world went black was Rachel's face, a look of horror and disbelief, as she screamed for me. How did it come back? I had destroyed the mirror. I had sunk the ship. I had ended it, or so I thought. The shadow closed in on me, pulling me deeper into the abyss. I could feel something moving just beyond the edges of my vision, watching me. A figure, a face. It was Rachel, but it wasn't her. Her eyes were wide, her expression twisted into a grimace, the same haunting one I had seen in the mirror. I reached out, desperate to grab her, but she was gone, disappearing into the water like a wisp of smoke. No. This wasn't happening. The force that had gripped me was stronger now, pulling me further into the ocean's heart, toward the depths where light couldn't reach. It wanted me. It had always wanted me. I woke up, gasping for air. I wasn't in the water anymore. I was in a dark, abandoned room, cold and damp. I could hear the faint sound of whispers around me, but I couldn't tell where they were coming from. My body ached, my muscles sore from the struggle. But there was something else, something deeper. The entity was here. It had followed me. It had always been there, and I was not going to escape it. "You shouldn't have left," a voice whispered from behind me. I turned quickly, my heart hammering in my chest. But there was no one. The room was empty, save for the shadows that stretched across the walls like twisted fingers. "You freed me," But you never left me, the voice continued, closer now, echoing in my skull. I could feel it, the entity. Its presence suffocating, pressing in from all sides. I tried to move, but my body felt like it was frozen in place. My breath quickened as I realized what was happening. What had happened? The ship hadn't sunk. It hadn't been destroyed. It was still out there. And so was the entity. Realized then that I wasn't free. No one was free. The Orpheus was more than a ship. It was a cursed vessel, and it had claimed my soul the moment I set foot aboard. I had destroyed the mirror, but the entity's influence wasn't bound to any object or place. It was a force, an ancient, malevolent being that existed in the depths of the ocean, and in the minds of those it claimed. It was always going to come back. It always had. And now, it had found a new home. Me. I struggled against the growing pressure in my chest, but the whispers grew louder, louder, until I couldn't think. Until I was suffocated by them. I had become one of them. One of the lost souls, of the Orpheus. I had failed. I couldn't escape. There was nowhere left to run. As the shadows closed in around me, I felt the cold hand of the entity reach for me, and I knew that I had become part of its eternal cycle. I reached out, but my body no longer obeyed me. I had failed, and as the entity claimed me, I knew that my fate was sealed.